Suddenly, the psychedelics are at the center of this new approach to healing. And I think the healing of psychedelics goes much, much farther than what we've touched on so far, which is the psychologically based conditions. I think it can be very, very useful in different doses, because what is so wonderful about psychedelics is to have totally different effects in the different dose.
Right.
And at the micro dose, I'm beginning to have evidence, and I'm just starting a study, which shows amazing potential results of microdose for Alzheimer's.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely amazing, remarkable.
Really?
Yeah. And
I was watching a video yesterday on cannabis and Parkinson's. It was incredible.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman who had horrible loss of control of his body and the shaking, and they gave him cannabis oil.
Yeah.
And he put it under his tongue, and a few minutes later, he's lying back on the couch, and then he holds his hands out, and his hands are dead straight. I'm like, this is extraordinary.
Extraordinary. And my partner before, who is the father of my children, he got Parkinson's. So I was I'm very fond of him. Mild Parkinson's, but still it was Parkinson's. And so I'd heard how, and I studied it, how microdosing ibogaine is very good for minimizing. So I'm setting up a research into that.
Interesting.
You know, I think also...
Yeah, this is the gentleman right here. This is exactly the video that I saw. So this guy has terrible loss of control of his body. He can barely hold the cannabis oil in his mouth.
Poor man.
Yeah. I mean, he's struggling so bad. But now, it says 1:37 p.m. This is when he takes it. And then you see just a few minutes later, they show him lie back. And this is at... Go ahead, Jamie. That's 1:41. Look at this. Not even 10 minutes.
That is magic.
And look at this. And he's fine. He sits up. And he's just blown away by it. He's like, it's so quickly. And look at his hands. Incredible.
No, that is wonderful.
I have a friend who has a child that has pretty severe autism. And when he gives the kid cannabis, when he gives him edible cannabis, it just stops it.
Yes.
It just stops it. The kid can
absolutely
make eye contact, communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I could show you. The trouble is I can show you privately, but not. The person involved doesn't want it to go out. Of a wonderful old lady of 97 who had Alzheimer's for 7 years or something, but she was very bright. She was a poet and a poetry and was looked after by her son. And then he went away for a week, and someone else came and looked after. And when he came back, she was in a kind of acute vegetative apathy, where she didn't recognize him, just staring into space. And they discussed it before, and she'd said, she knew he sometimes took a psychedelic, and so he gave her a microdose of LSD. And an hour later, I've got the photograph, she's a little sparkling old lady with her full contact with him, saying, I feel so wonderful, let's read some poetry now.
Wow.
You know, just like that man.
Yeah.
And then he contacted me and said, what should he do? So I said, well, first thing would be to get a doctor to help you manage it, and then continue with the lower doses gets that effect, which was 10 microdose, which is 10 millionth of a gram. I mean, such a small dose, you would hardly think it could have an effect. And that does something which I'm doing research on now. I think it's to do with the connectivity between the different brain centers, which I think it sparks. And it brought her back. And her children said it was just remarkable.
It's incredible.
You know, and I've noticed the same things. I'm in the middle of getting going on an autism study, because I think certainly with level 1, the lower degrees of autism, microdosing LSD can be enormously beneficial. And I've got a friend who's had experience of that and wrote a very good book about it, actually, called Autism and LSD. And so now I'm designing a study, getting his advice on the autism level of things. And I think that what I'm fascinated in, and this is where I got this interest right back in 1966, are what are the mechanisms underlying that makes LSD and associated compounds have the effect it has. And obviously then there was no brain imaging, so it was very difficult to see inside the brain. One could only theorize about it, make hypotheses. And so this Dutch scientist who I had a long relationship with had this hypothesis that it constricts, it's a vasoconstrictor, constricting the veins, so blood comes into the capillaries, can't get out, the capillaries blow up and squeeze out the cerebral spinal fluid, and then slowly over the hours, gravity pulls the blood down again. So that's
the theory.
Yeah, and you go back to normal. But during that period of more blood in the brain, you have more energy. Now I'm looking into, how does it make more energy apart from providing more glucose and oxygen? And I've got a very, very interesting something which is coming up, which I'll tell you on my next talk about.
Okay.
But I'm very excited because I think anyone you talk to would say that the psychedelics, or indeed cannabis, they all work on the same direction. I think cannabis and the psychedelics have the same underlying mechanisms, but at different levels of, I think, the constrictions in the psychedelics are much stronger because you obviously get much higher you can on a psychedelic, but they're going in the same direction. And that's what endogenously, a lot of I'd love to know more about that, and I will if I've got time to do that, study into the underlying, serotonin, dopamine, all the different enzymes, hormones in the body which can do these things endogenously.
Yes.
I mean, we know the saints got top high.